There's your Bloody Mary.
Yes.
That's foul.
That's foul.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. It is 8:58 a.m. Mountain Time. And it's just about time for us to call Wendy. In fact, I think I'll do that right now.
Okay.
We got more stuff coming up in the show a little bit later, so do hang on for that. And I'm hoping to take a call from Steven Schleicher.
Yes.
Over there at the Major Spoilers.
Oh, yes. Suck it, Trebek.
Shuck it. Let's see. Oh, I don't know what that sound was, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So here she comes. That phone ringing could only mean one thing. It's Wendy Dunford, heir to the Dunford donut fortune.
Hello.
Wendy Dunford.
Yes,
Good
sir.
morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
Good morning.
You doing
How
all
are
right?
you guys?
How are my niece or my nephews and niece?
They are doing well.
Are they wearing green?
Yeah, are they wearing green today?
They are both head to toe green. There is a major scare in this country for children.
Really? Wow.
All they talk
Getting
about
pinched?
is, I'm going to get pinched. I'm going to get pinched.
Yeah, that happened
And I
today
was
with
asking-
Nick. First thing Nick did this morning was pinch me.
Oh,
Yeah.
see? He's one of the aggressive type. Mine are the receptive victims. They're a little nervous. So.
Great.
They are covered in green. And what's funny is I took a bunch of kids to school and I asked them all about it. And there's all these rules. I didn't know there were rules.
Like what? Like what?
10
What kind of rules?
pinches. 10 pinches if someone pinches you and you have green on, like you trick them and they pinch you and you have green on, you get 10 back. I was like, wow, really? Yeah,
Really?
that's like the official. Yeah.
That's crazy. Hey, I meant to ask you actually. Speaking of kids at school and stuff that goes on there, did you? And it got pulled down in a lot of places. But did you happen to see that YouTube video that was floating around of that kid in Australia that was punching the bigger kid, and then the bigger kid went off and picked him up and threw him on the cement? Did you happen to catch that?
No.
All right,
Oh
I'm going to
gosh,
pass
no.
that on to you so you can see it. But I just think it's an interesting psychological window into bullies, and I don't know. There's something about that video that is just really raw and primal. And I meant to send it to you and I forgot. But it keeps getting pulled down everywhere. Like it'll show up on a site and then get pulled, and then site somewhere and get pulled. And probably because, they want to protect kids' identities or whatever. But anyway.
Well, and if you think about it, I had a client recently talk about his first fight as like an 8th grader. I mean, he's had a few scuffles before then, but like a real one. And it is primal. It's terrible. It's ridiculous. And yet no one was filming anything back in 1984. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, the fights, the one fight that I ever started where I punched a kid in the nose and broke his nose and broke my pinky and got suspended for 2 weeks was there. Nobody could film that. Had they filmed it, that thing would have been a great YouTube video.
Right, exactly. But I think you're seeing the primal, like, aboriginal freak show that we can be in those moments, like that when our reptile brain takes over. You get to watch that. It's probably scary when you're just, normal sitting in your living room. But the reality is that's, a little
Very
bit of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love and Reptile Brain was my wrestling name in high school. So thanks for bringing that up. All right. We are here yet again for another episode of Therapy Thursdays with Wendy Dunford. She, of course, is a real therapist. She's helping people all the time, and we do our best to help people one email at a time right here on this show. Wendy, we got an email from somebody who wanted to remain anonymous who says, "Hi, guys. So I have a question for you. I have been married for 13 years. I'm 32 and my husband is 44. It's a pretty big difference in age, but whatever. I would love to have a baby, but I can't see my life, I can't see my life without a child in my future. My husband struggles with depression and is very nervous about being a father. What do we do? I don't want to pressure him into having a child by any means, but I myself find myself wanting to be a mother. Very confused. Any advice you have for me would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much." Anonymous. So, where do you even start with somebody she's having, you could argue natural lizard brain desires to have a baby.
Right.
It could be just a good old fashioned basic instinct there. And she, that's a fine thing to feel and want and do. And she's got somebody with her that just does not want to go that way. Is this a breaking point for people like that, or is there a way around all this?
Well, first of all, congratulations to them for being married so long. And she was young when they got married. She was 19.
Yeah, 19, and he was 31.
And he was, do the math. Yeah.
Wow.
So they've somehow made this work for this long, and so all that's good. And yeah, it is really I mean, her biological clock is ticking, and so she's hearing that. I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I'm going to run out of good eggs soon. I mean, she's got a little while, but still, you know, you kind of start to feel some of those feelings. And, you know, all of that's good and fine. And I'm guessing more than anything, his issues with this, and Scott, maybe you can speak to this. I mean, you were a little bit younger than that, but you were pretty scared about being a dad until
I was
the moment you were a
terrified.
dad.
Yeah, I was.
But I think you know, he struggles with depression. He's really questioning his ability to be a good father. You know, maybe his father or his mother had depression, and he knows how sucky that can be, you know. And so I'm guessing the issue could be addressed if he got a chance to really talk about what those fears were, have them validated, and then understand that, you know, there's risk to being parents. I mean, if you've never struggled with depression and you have a kid, well, you could get depression. I mean, it's not a guarantee that he's going to have a major meltdown just because of the kid, but I think he's probably concerned about, you know, how is this going to impact this child, probably because of his own experience. Depression tends to run in families, so he probably has some experience. So he just probably needs to talk about it, have it validated, and then really, again, it's sort of jumping in with both feet, unfortunately. And in her case, she's got to realize that biological need is pretty strong, but that should not override that relationship.
Right.
If she really wants a child and he never does, and that may be a deal breaker for her, she has to make that decision. But working with him and talking to him and helping him analyze some of his fears and comforting him and, you know, sort of working through it together is your best bet.
So you
Forgetting
always
the birth control accidentally is not a good idea.
You have always mandated or not mandated, but you've always argued for having a lot of this sort of stuff figured out before you get married, like deciding that, okay, well, I'm really attracted to that guy. Number one, okay, that's good. He's super cool and nice and funny. I like that. He wants to have kids. Okay, cool. I'm cool with that too. I want to have kids too, and so on. Is this a case where, especially when he was 32 and she was 19, where that probably never came up? There was probably not a lot of talk about, you know, do we want to have kids in the future or not? Would that have done anything here, or at the very least, would that have given her maybe at 19 she wouldn't have had any desire to have a kid either?
Right. That's
that's hard.
Probably true.
Yeah.
Well, you can. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can talk about before you're married, but the reality is you change. Everyone changes. Mm-hmm. At every different stage, and this is another change they have to adjust to. So you're right, they probably hadn't had this conversation, or if they did, her clock wasn't ticking yet, and she was like, okay, whatever makes you happy, you know. And as time has gone on and that need has increased, and, you know, I'm really guessing it boils down to his fear that he'll turn into someone he's witnessed already as a parent, and that he has been hurt by. So I think the issue really is his, to deal with, but she has a really imperative role, and that is to be kind and loving in that process as he explores that. Because she could make it all about her, like, you are a jerk and you won't let me have a baby, and, you know,
right.
et cetera, et cetera. And there are plenty of women who, you know, that need gets strong and they get manipulative and mean, or they accidentally forget birth control pills one day.
Oh, it's the worst.
And, you know,
yeah,
and that is a terrible idea.
That'll really help his depression.
Yeah, that's sure going to make him trust you with that new baby.
Yeah,
anyway, so you really have that. Got to work together on this. And if the time comes where he is absolutely against it, then, you know, you have to decide what you want to do. And the thing is, people really do change and grow. And maybe for him as a 44-year-old, this is a good time, and maybe it's not. I don't know. But I would really recommend that she work with him in exploring that, and not make it all about him being his fault, but together, that they're sort of figuring out how does this impact you? What is it having a child really like? And maybe talk to friends that have had experience, obviously, with having kids, and fathers. What's that like for them? Sort of just open your eyes to the reality of what it is going to be, and then know that you're not going to dive into the deepest depression in the world because you have a child, but you may struggle with it. But you know, there's a part of him that wants a kid too, even though he's saying no. There is that part. So, maybe uncover that a little bit.
All right. Well, interesting. So you talked about my nervousness when I, was getting around kid time.
Yeah.
And by the way, Kim, my wife was also 19 when I got married, but I was 23. So not quite the same.
You were
as,
not 32.
Oh yeah. And I've seen, and we've all seen, we've all got friends who have, bigger age differences than we do, I think, and have seen that work. So I don't think that's coming into play here as much.
Not as much, no. Especially not at this stage. The difference between 44 and 32 is less than it was when you were 32 and she was 19.
32 and 19, yeah.
It's also less. It's also going to be less when you're 54 and she's 44 or whatever. So there's.
Well, I'm guessing he maybe didn't get married till 32. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but also out of nervousness, out of
yeah, it could be.
Wow, I don't want to bring someone else into my depressive situation.
Yeah.
And he found the right fit. And guess what? The kid that comes to you is the right fit.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point.
can't control that, but it usually is.
It usually is. That's almost always true.
Yeah.
So I can just say this from my own experience, being the one in the relationship that was nervous. We were 2 years into marriage before we had planned very specifically when we wanted to start having kids. So Taylor was born in 1994, and she's 16 now. She's my oldest, and I was terrified. And as a result, like I get when I have to poop on a plane, I curled up in a chair and was nervous the whole night and was almost, going to die. And that was just when she was in labor. Before that, before we even started to think about it, I was like, oh, but do we really want to bring a kid into this horrible world? And this is oh my gosh, I don't know if I can be a good dad or not. And all these kind of questions that rush through your head and all the irrational ways that they do. I was definitely in kind of full blown mode for that. And then something clicked. The minute that baby was born, it all changed. Like out pops Taylor and my whole life went boop, and I quit worrying about it. And the next two, no problem. This is easy with the next two. And it is the single most important, coolest thing I've ever done was to have those kids. And I don't regret any of it, like none of it. And they've all turned out to be wonderful, happy, great kids who work hard in school and know how to have fun and hang out with the family and laugh and play. And anybody who's been to Nerdtacular, they've met, my kids, and they kind of get to see for themselves that I'm not just making all this up. And I wouldn't trade any of that for anything. And I would argue that if she can get with her husband and talk to him enough about the potential joy that comes from having children and raising kids. And look, I'm not saying that people who decide not to have kids, that there's anything, dude, whatever floats everyone's boat, but just happened to float mine to have 3 really great kids. And if that is her destiny that she wants to find, then I think that she should pursue it with him and work with him to get to him to a point where, having kids sometimes helps with your sort of depression or whatever. I think he may be feeling, this is just a guess, but he may be feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm 44 now. If I have a kid now, when he's 10, I'll be 54. When he's 20, I'll be 64. I won't even be around for grandkids. This may be going through his mind. And I think a lot about age all the time, so I know how he feels. But I think if, you start working on him now and stuff, get him to that point where maybe he'll see what the potential awesomeness of this is. And it's just the greatest thing I've ever done. Everything else I do can go away, but that is chief among my life's accomplishments. And I look back not at all. And
and I think something to throw out there is that I'm extremely sexist in this regard, and I'll just throw that out there, that if it was the other way around, if this was a man saying, I really want kids and she doesn't, you got to be really careful, because as much as I am all about equal parenting and co-parenting and all of that, the reality is that baby comes out of your body and it sucks on your boobs and it is attached to you. And biology, you cannot fight millions of years of development, but it is primarily your job. And the dad can do a lot. They really can be awesome, and they're crucial to that process. Don't get me wrong. But pressuring a woman to have a baby, that really needs to come from her. I think the team needs to make that decision with him. But for him, maybe something to relax about is that she's got all the work for a while. You really can just enjoy the process. Maybe get a separate room for a while because you're not going to sleep very well. But, there is that primary caretaking that's coming from someone who really wants to do it and has that desire. And so to know that your world's not going to come crashing down. I'm more concerned about a woman who has a history of depression and isn't interested necessarily having a baby, because a baby is a huge change, and biologically it has a pretty big impact for females. So anyway, that I just thought I'd throw that out there, that if they're in a fairly good position in the sense that she has this desire and this yearning. She's old enough, she's mature enough, they're in a great spot that she really can probably take a lot of the care of this child if he does struggle. But it's not going to not have any parents. It's, this baby's going to have this loving mother, and he's going to have joy he cannot comprehend. Yep. That's an interesting thing about someone who struggles with depression. They're likely more of a sensitive person in general. And that's not always true, but often that's true. There's an interesting book about highly sensitive people. Our code word for you guys are HSPs, in case you're wondering. Anyway, and Scott, you're one of those. There's a few, in my life, and thank goodness, because you people create music and art and make the world beautiful, so thank goodness you're on the planet. And he may be one of those that means he feels pretty deeply. And he's going to experience an extreme he probably didn't know was even possible with this love that comes with this new kid.
Yeah, and do
you think we've convinced him?
It's immediate. I hope so, because again, it's a hard choice, and I know there's lots of mitigating circumstances, but in the end, all I can tell you is, from my perspective, it's the greatest thing ever, and I wouldn't change it for nothing.
I would also ask him, do they have a dog? If not, get a dog.
Yeah, at least get a dog.
A little bit.
Yeah. And put a diaper on the dog.
Burp the dog.
Wake up every night with it.
Yeah, make it bark at night. All those things will help.
Right.
Help you deal with it. All right. Well, I think that's pretty sound advice, and we wish you the very best of luck, and hope that it all works out for you. Once again, Wendy, a pleasure to have you on the show. We can see you next week, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, and have a great week, and tell my nephews and niece that I love them and miss them horribly.
I will. All right.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
And say hi to Adam, too. Keep working on that Dunford fortune. All right. See ya. Donuts. Donuts are where it's at.
The future of the world, buddy. Donuts.
I really do like that segment. Like, I know we get serious for a bit, but I couldn't feel more strong about it. I think it's important that we talk about this kind of stuff. All right.
Yeah.
So should we do a mashup?